Today we're going to be making something called Zupa Tuscana. If you've ever been to Olive Garden, it's one of their classic soups that's on the menu. It's the one that has the potato and kind of the milky broth and sausage in it and kale. Everyone is always like, I don't like kale, but then they have Zupa Tuscana and they're like, I guess it's all right. So we're going to be making that today. It's actually really easy and actually really flavorful. First thing we're going to do is we're going to start off by cutting up an onion. Once your onion is cut up, you're going to throw it in a cast iron. It doesn't have to be a cast iron, but if we're going to do it, we're going to do it in a cast iron because it adds so much flavor. So cast iron with a little bit of olive oil. While that's starting to cook, we're going to go ahead and work on the sausage. So the recipe calls for 1 pound of Italian spicy sausage. So this says hot, so I'm going to go with that. A lot of times you can find it just ground. That's the best, but for some reason they didn't have that today, so we're going to use these. All you're going to do is remove the casing. So we're going to cut this up, remove the casings, put it in the pan with the onions, and let it cook down. Real sausage that's made is in this clear casing that's on the outside. You can actually take it off. It's really easy. Just take a knife, just slice down and peel it out. Kind of like a banana. So I'm just going to slice it until I get some of that casing, and then just take the casing all the way off. Should be fairly simple. So that's the casing. We're not going to talk about what that is. It's gross. Once we get all that done, we're going to just kind of break it up and put it in the pan with the onion. I would not use this for B-roll. This is gross. People aren't going to want to watch this. So I would definitely advise you not to buy the ones in the casing if you can. If that's all they have, go for it. But that was gross. I'll be real. It was gross and it didn't turn out very pretty. This is what I've got. I'm going to put it inside with our onions. We're just going to kind of break it up a little bit like you're cooking beef, you know, when you're crumbling up for like tacos. That's basically what you're going to do. All right, I'm just going to let this cook down a little bit. We're going to add a little bit of garlic powder in to our cooking sausage and onions. Don't be afraid of garlic powder. It's amazing. So I have this nifty thing that I got from Pampered Chef, La Pampered Chef, like a million years ago. And it's for ground beef. If you don't have one of these things, find you one, because it's great. Like, you literally just put it on top of meat and like turn it, and it starts breaking it up for you. And I use this thing on everything. I love it so much. So it's a little kitchen hack for you. Buy this gadget. I don't know what it's called. Next up, we're going to add some russet potatoes. So I've got 4. So anytime you use potatoes, don't forget you've got to wash them off a little bit. You don't have to be like perfect. Just give them a good bath. I mean, they did grow in the dirt, so just wash them off at least. And then they don't have to be super fancy. You're just going to cut them up with the skins on. The skins add a lot of flavor. I like mine to be kind of smaller, like so. Bite size is what I'm aiming for. I love potatoes. I feel like you can do so many different things with potatoes. If you haven't done homemade scallop potatoes, you've got to try those. I like making those because everyone thinks you're going to bring potatoes to events like Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything like that. Potatoes is like a staple, right? But not russet potatoes. Scallop potatoes are so easy and creamy, and you can put cheese and all sorts of things in it. Some people like to top it with bacon. I feel like that's coming in the weeks ahead. We may have to make that. So stay tuned for that recipe because we're going to definitely dive into that because I love potatoes. All right, potatoes are cut. I know it's kind of surprising because when you see this giant thing of soup, you're going to think it has more potatoes in it, but it doesn't. It is actually soup, not like a stew, which has more stuff in the sauce. This is really all about the liquid that's inside the soup, so this will be enough potatoes, as shocking as it seems. All right, so we're just going to check this meat. It looks pretty good. We're just cooking it till we don't see any pink. We're going to get rid of all that because it's pork. And cooking the onions down. It looks pretty good. This really doesn't have that much grease, but if you find that there's a bunch of grease in the pan, you do want to strain that. You don't want your soup to be too greasy, but this right here, this is not too much, so I wouldn't strain this. This is just like a decent amount because there's something about the soup. It actually has a ooh, I choked to death. It must be spicy. You want a little bit of that on the top, actually. It's kind of signature to the soup, is that fat that comes off of the pork sausage. It's amazing. Next up, the Instant Pot. If you don't have an Instant Pot, you can do this in a crock pot. You're just basically going to do everything. It's just going to take a couple hours of letting it actually cook. So we're gonna cheat. We're gonna use the Instant Pot today. What we're gonna put inside of our Instant Pot is gonna be some garlic. And yes, I have the giant one because you can never have enough garlic. Salt, pepper, our potatoes. And then the recipe actually calls for either chicken broth or chicken stock. So if you need a bunch, why not do both? So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go ahead and put our potatoes in first. Then I'm gonna use all the stock first. I don't know all the technical stuff, okay? But I know that stock is not your like flavorful version. It's like, it's not something you would sip on. Like I feel like chicken broth you could like put in a bowl, heat up, and sip on. This is not really that. This is more just like flavor concentrated. So then you're gonna use your broth to help bring up how much liquid is actually in there. So all our flavor is there from the stock, and then we're gonna add extra flavor. See how it's not nearly the like the color that broth is? Oh. I also buy reduced sodium because I feel like every day, no matter what you do, you're having way too much salt. So if something says reduced sodium or low salt, I feel like you should always go for that. Now it said do this and then add water. I'm just adding extra broth because it equals itself out and has more flavor. So we're gonna add some garlic. I like to eyeball everything. I don't follow a recipe when it comes to garlic because I always feel like there's never enough. So we're gonna put like a good amount of garlic in. If you watch these videos, you will see salt, pepper, and garlic. I do not measure. I do those however I want. So we're gonna add a little bit of salt, not a ton. Thank goodness we use low salt in our stuff. Then we're gonna add pepper. Next up, we're gonna put our onions and our sausage inside. You see here, we've got almost all of the pink cooked out. And if you have a little bit left, that's okay because it's gonna cook in here too. So that's what we're gonna do. Now is about the perfect time. Even if you have a little bit more pink, that's still okay. Just make sure you have actually cooked it at least about 75% of the way. Turn this off, because if you remember the last video, I forgot to turn my stove off. So here we go. I might need help with this. We'll see. Yeah, gotta call the man.
Oh, there's still some pink in here.
It's okay. Did you not listen to what I just said?
No, I wasn't listening.
I just said it's okay because it's gonna cook down. Be careful, it's gonna flop.
Alright.
Alright, so we're gonna add the onion and sausage mixture into, into the broth.
Voila.
Thank you, man.
Haha, He-Man's wrong.
So essentially that's all of the hard work. So at this point, if you're using a crock pot, you're gonna set that on high for like 5 hours. Basically, you want the potatoes to cook fully and then just kind of continually mix it a little bit to keep it combined. And then we add the extra ingredients at the end. So we're gonna come over and we're going to mix it. Let me grab a spoon. Not a spoon, a wooden spatula thing. So we're just gonna mix it so all of our ingredients are together. And then we're gonna cheat and we're gonna put this on, I'm thinking about 40 minutes in the Instant Pot. Ignore how dirty everything is, but this is a well-used Instant Pot. We use it all the time. So we're gonna seal that puppy, make sure your vent is off. And then we are going to cook it on, let's do soup, because it is soup, right? And I'm gonna crank that puppy up to 45 minutes. There we go. We let it do its magic.
In the time that you're waiting for the food to cook, you could be cleaning the house like you should.
First of all, I didn't say I was cleaning the house. I'm gonna clean up the kitchen.
The kitchen.
Only because it makes it a lot easier when you're done, because you're gonna have a bunch of stuff you're gonna want to like box and you want to eat it immediately when you're done. If you've already picked up the kitchen, then that's one less thing you have to worry about. Tell your mama. It's time to check. So if you've never used an Instant Pot before, hopefully this is not a tutorial on how to use one, but you'll have to vent it. So you gotta be really careful. That's very hot. So now we wait. Get yourself a potato facial. All right, we're almost done. You gotta listen for it. It makes a sound. This little thing has to drop. It'll literally just go click, and then it'll be done. Oh, oh. Come on. Ha! Okay, here we go. Moment of truth. Potatoes look great. Look at this. Okay. So your potatoes are like falling apart. It's perfect. So that is your soup. You can do it one of two ways. You can either use this as your soup base and then make your bowls of soup, and then add the kale into each soup and add the cream into each soup, or you can add those ingredients all at one time. I like to add the kale in to each bowl and the cream into each bowl, because that way this stuff is fine in the refrigerator, but when you put the kale in there, then it starts getting wilty after a long time, and then the cream doesn't have the effect that it normally does right when you put it in the bowl. So basically, this is ready to eat. You're literally just going to pour this into a bowl, pour some cream into it, and put some chopped kale into it. Mix it up, and the kale will start to soak up all the juices, and it's amazing. It's so good. What time is it? It's time for some Zupa Tuscana. Let's bowl this puppy up. Yas. Make sure you get plenty of that, like, liquid in there, because what you're going to do is use that liquid to make a really creamy sauce. So we're going to take kale. I usually like the really big bags of kale, but Kroger was a little short today. So we're going to take a handful of kale, and I like to make sure it's nice and broken up because you want it to be in like good bite-sized pieces. So like so. Get a spoon. Alright. So you're going to let that kale get down in there, and it will kind of soften a little bit. But honestly, the crunch in there is so nice. So that's why I don't like to leave it in the soup, because then it gets just kind of like wilted. Like spinach, you know? Fresh spinach and cooked spinach are very different, just like kale. You're going to add heavy whipping cream, desired amount. And honestly, I think for that whole thing, you'd use about a cup. So that should be pretty good. And then you're going to just, oh my God, let it do its thing. Get it in there. You can add extra salt and pepper, whatever you want. Like I said, some of the recipes say top with Parmesan cheese, but it does not even need it. It doesn't. All right. Shut up, baby. It's so, like, buttery, and the fat from the sausage is rendered on top. So do you see it? Remember how I was telling you not really to drain it? See the separation of color? It's like white, and then that grease is on top. But oh my God, you know how they say all the flavor in bacon's like in the fat? Yeah. From the sausage, it's all in there. And you can add extra seasoning to it if you want. But look, see how the kale is already starting to kind of soften? It's not going to be as crunchy as you think. But what bite it does have really adds to it. So anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Stay tuned for more cooking adventures.